Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a project that I did on the Art Joy of Sharing live stream show today, 1/17/19. And I started out with a piece of 140-pound watercolor paper, which I sketched some California poppies. The California poppies are coming out here in Arizona along the sides of the roads. It's not California, but they are here. So that means that spring's not too far away. It's still colder than I prefer, but we do have some poppies. So I sketched them and then I painted around the background using some indigo colored high flow golden acrylic with a water brush. And then and I did all that before the show. It's like in the green room before we started our live show. And then I started to color in my leaves and poppies with some Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. The greens are called dull green, which I thought was kind of funny. They're not dull, poor greens. Why would you call them that? But then I used some oranges and reds, yellows, those type of colors for the actual poppy pieces. And this was all stuff that I was doing kind of before the show topic. The show topic today was talking about how embossing in mixed media is a continuing trend. There's a lot of new colors and formulations of embossing powders coming out this year at Creativation or CHA, the trade show that's coming up, I think this week or next week. I'm not attending this year, but embossing powder's been out there for a long time, and I have a lot of it already. I don't really need to purchase anymore, but it is kind of fun to add it as an element to your mixed media projects. So today I'm just showing a very simple way of doing it, and kind of bumping up your illustration and your painting or whatever by adding some dimension and some shine and some metallic and stuff like that to it. So I kind of wanted to have most of this coloring and painting done, but I didn't quite get that done before the show. So I'm just doing it on camera. And of course, Peg Robinson is in the show with me, so she's doing her parts, and those have been, trimmed out. If you want to see all that stuff that Peg did, she worked on a large canvas, plus she made a couple tags and some embellishments and things like that. You can go to the description box below the video and watch the live stream recording, which there's a link there to the other channel, Art Joy of Sharing live stream, where we live stream every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. That's every Thursday. So you can go and watch the actual show if you would like to, rather than watching the speed version. But so now I'm starting with my embossing, and I have lots of colors of embossing powder. I've got these matte colors. I've got mixtures. I've got thick embossing. I've got all kinds of stuff. But what I was showing is that you can use a Versamark re-inker and a water brush, and I just put one little drop of that re-inker in my palette over there, and I'm just picking it up and I'm coloring in areas that I want to put the embossing powder. And I'm starting out with red embossing powder. So I just colored in a few areas with my brush, and then I'm just taking this straight red embossing powder. I have a tray there to catch it. Those trays get staticky, and not all of it goes back into the bottle. I wish they were designed a little bit better, but I put some anti-static powder on there to try to keep it flowing, but I did still have some left in the tray, and you'll see what I do with that. So I take the rest of that little bit of red and put it in another little palette, and then I start making blends, because if you paint, you do this with paint, right? You take a little bit of red and then the next color, and you blend them together to kind of make it in-between tone. And so I mixed the red and the orange together and made a mixture, and then I started to paint that on in areas and heat it. Of course, there was a lot of heat tool action on today's show because you have to heat embossing powder. It is a plastic type of a polymer that you need something sticky like a Versamark or a type of an embossing pad that has sticky pigment in it. Also, you could use fluid glycerin, something like that, to make it stick to your paper long enough for you to heat it and heat set it onto there. So I used my red and orange mixture, and that was pretty fun, kind of a in between a red and an orange because it was mixed together. You can also mix in the chunky embossing powders, the metallic embossing powders. You can mix in clear embossing powder. You can make all kinds of mixes, and I think it's fun to do that. If you don't have embossing powder at all, then you can certainly buy some of the custom mixes that are being made these days. You know, an artist will have a whole line of their colors or whatever, their formulas. Certainly, that's an awesome way to get it. But if you already have your own powder, why don't you try mixing it and making fun stuff out of it? So this mixture is mustard, some of that orange, and then a little bit of clear that I've mixed together. And I might have put a little bit of gold in that one, maybe. A little bit of gold flecks in it. I can't remember now. I made a lot of mixtures today, so I'm not sure. But this is fun. This is a lot of, action. And that turned out brighter and lighter than I thought. The real light areas of the poppy is where that mixture came in, and it wasn't as mustard colored as I thought it was going to be. So then my next one is a darker one, and I mixed rust with burgundy, and then I mixed in some chunky bronze into it that's like the more coarse textured. Used to be called ultra thick embossing powder. It's just chunkier. It's bigger pieces, so it comes out as a thicker sheen, but it also makes fun flecks. I guess I did a little bit of gold and a little bit of bronze, and I also put some clear in there. So this one is, it's intended to be kind of a, what would you want to say, a spotty. Like, because it has the clear, it's going to have spots where the color's showing through. Plus, then it has those chunks of the metallics, and so it makes kind of a textury, spotty look. And I was using that one as a shading, so putting it in the darker areas of the project where I wanted like a little bit of speckled shading, kind of like if you'd taken a pen and made a lot of dots. Pointillism art where all your shading and everything is made with dots. It's kind of that idea. Of course, it didn't turn out exactly like I expected, but that's why this is fun. This is an experiment. It's fun to play around, and it's one of those things that you're only going to get one time. There's no possible way that I could ever duplicate this, even if I had a copy of the drawing, which I don't. I could never duplicate how it turned out because it's a one-off. You get what you get. So that makes it more artistic, I think. That's just not easy to duplicate. So I'm putting that one in the areas that I painted on the Versamark Reinker goop. It's like sticky goop. It's very sticky. And heat that, and you can see it just kind of, it added some metallic hints to it and added some more shading. So then the next one, which I didn't get on camera, was olive and sage and the bronze chunky. And I mixed those together and did some on the leaves. And then I thought to myself that I needed to work on the background. So I'm looking for a stencil right now. And I come up with one of my favorites, which is from Stencil Girl. And they are grasses and weeds and things like that. And I will, of course, put a link in the description box below as to which one it was. I can't remember. One of them's called Tangled Seagrass, and I don't know what all they're called. But I have 3 of them, and these are awesome. these are probably my favorite stencils right now. They're really more of a mask than a stencil, but I'm pouncing my Versamark pad, which has a spongy pad on it, through the stencil to get some texture into my background. And I'm using a color called Dark Denim, which is a dark blue, navy blue color all over where I put the, bits of Versamark. I was trying to avoid my flowers as I was doing this, but because the Versamark pad is clunky and square, has hard edges and stuff, I ended up having to take a dry brush and brushing off the embossing powder where I didn't want it on top of the flowers, because it decided to be some on top of the flowers some, and I didn't want that at all. So took a few seconds or minutes or whatever to just brush it off with a dry brush in the areas that I didn't want it, which you can always do. And then I heated it up. And I still wanted another layer. So this time I took the same stencil. You can turn it and flip it over and make it look a lot of different ways. And I used an artist sponge and sponged on instead of using the pad, because the pad had so many right angles that I was getting really straight areas, and I didn't want that. So I'm using a sponge instead. And then I also even use the brush a little bit in areas just to fill up that background and give it some more texture and interest. And I'm going to use a pearl embossing powder this time. It's just kind of like a white pearl powder. So it ends up having a very interesting and kind of shimmery, shiny background. And then, of course, the foreground has some flecks of metallic. It's really cool. There will be close-ups at the end where you can kind of see how it turns out. I will also spray, I have a spray sealer called Triple Thick. I will spray that over the whole thing just to seal everything in, to make sure that nothing comes off of it or sticks to anything else before I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know if I'll frame it or put it in a art journal or what, but haven't thought that far ahead. So now I have that pearl on there, and I'm heating it up, and it turns out really cool. It's like kind of makes a lighter blue. So now we have multiple colors of blue in the background, and then of course blue and orange are complementary colors across the color wheel, so they look good together. So then I think I just add some more. I added some more olive, just straight olive color to the leaves, and then maybe adding one more coat of orange, some orange in areas that didn't get hit with the powder yet. And I add a little bit of graphite just to darken up some areas at the very end. Doesn't really stick to the embossing powder, but it turned out pretty cool, and I'm happy with it. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, I know this is kind of a speeding through, so if you have any questions, leave them below and I'll answer them. And if you have any comments or anything like that, you can certainly leave those below. Give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on your notification bell so that you know when a new video comes out on my channel, which is usually every other day, sometimes every third day. So that is it for me for embossing trends in mixed media. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.